All right, Nicole, welcome to the Spa Marketing Made Easy podcast. We are here in Finance Month. It is time to dive into your finances, to get comfortable with it, really. And this is the perfect time of year to really understand where you're at. There's still time to make changes. When we move into Q4, there's lots of money-making opportunities, but we want to make sure that we are finishing the year strong. So we've got to really dive into those finances. And today we're going to be talking about 3 ways that you can lower your operating expenses, which oftentimes we see in spas. I know you really see the behind the scenes of spas as our finance coach. But that can be one of the things is just, hey, I'm making money, but there's a lot going out. So how do I shift that? Right?
Yeah, I'm excited for Finance Month. This will be great.
I hope everybody is too. All right. So let's just start off with what are the lowest hanging fruit. Like when we're looking, we're saying, okay, we've really got to dive into our finances and we've got to cut those expenses. Where do we start?
Yeah, I think that where you start is where you're going to gain some momentum. And that's the, easy things of the subscriptions that you need to cancel that you aren't using anymore. Personally, as a coach, I hate any unnecessary bank fees, like overdraft fees that can happen if you don't have good systems in place. Working on eliminating those is a great place to start. And also just like questioning any bills that might have increased over time. Things like your internet and phone bills have a tendency to just naturally inflate. And we need to take a look at those every once in a while to figure out why they're going up. Do we get moved into a different plan? Does it need to come back down? Those are the easy places to start that will help you gain momentum with your finances. It's almost like a good mindset place to start for you.
Something I've heard you say before when you were teaching at one of our in-person events was it's not that you don't like spending and don't want people to spend, but you hate wasting money. And so it's important to spend on the things that bring you value, spend on things that are investments and getting an ROI. It's, we're not one of those companies that are going to say, don't get your latte if that's something that brings you lots of joy.
Yeah.
But these expenses that you're not using and that we just need to be mindful of. I had a Dropbox subscription that was going and it was $19.99 a month. And it felt like, oh, it's going to take me an hour to figure out how to cancel it. And then I was like, no, I've got to do it, but it's those little expenses that add up, right?
Yeah,
over time.
They do. And I think that expenses are like in a natural place of expansion, just like I mentioned with the internet and phone bill, right? Because it's so easy. We sign up for stuff, we try stuff. It's one click to get this or that and the other. And so we really need to do a deep dive and check in a couple of times a year to make sure we're scaling it back. And just focusing on not wasting. Then you can go back and optimize more. But the first step is really to just cut out where you're already wasting money. You won't feel any impact from that. It's just financial housekeeping.
Yes, very good. So, overdraft, subscriptions you're not using, bills that have increased over time. Let's move into the variable expenses because those are, that can just be a couple of hours. You dive into that. The variable expenses, I think, is where it gets a little more kind of in the weeds, where we've got to look at these types of things. This can be marketing expenses. This can be your Amazon orders, which I know Amazon, whenever I'm reconciling my YNAB, I'm like, Amazon.
I know.
Give so much money to that company. And then also personal development, things of that nature. So talk to me about this kind of arena of variable spending.
Yeah, this is where you have to start incorporating your behavior into the analysis of your numbers. And are there areas where you've been overdoing it? Are there areas where it's time to pull back a little for a season? It's okay for these things to kind of ebb and flow through time. I always tell people, like, understand where your bad habits are and then build systems around it. And, we talked about Amazon. I'd say, like, it's Target for me, like on the personal side, like don't go to Target, right? So like, what are your like triggers where you might be overspending? For some people, it's personal development in their business. And we always support that, but we also need to be really clear and intentional about where you're spending money and how it's fitting into the bigger picture of the business. So, do we need to scale back on Amazon orders? Have they gotten a little bit out of control? Maybe if you have a suspicion that that's true, you kind of dive into that scary order history and see, like, if you look back, what was all of this necessary, or was it maybe not? Is there room to scale back there for a little while if that's a goal of yours to do? And then for marketing expenses, just being really clear on what ROI that is bringing your company. And actually the same can be said for personal development, right? If you're utilizing your personal development and it's bringing a big ROI to your business, then, that's different than if you're not utilizing it properly, right? So understanding the return that is coming in for these expenses on your business. And there might be some cases with, if you're paying a social media team, but you're not getting the return from social media, like that gives you good information about how to course correct and make different decisions on your business to maybe try something different. So
there's a few things I want to throw in there. So with the personal development side, I know some of you are out there that you are like compulsive book buyers, and they're sitting on the shelves and they've never been opened and they've never been read. That is a waste of money if you're not actually reading the book and applying what you learn to your business. That can feel like such a small scale thing, but books can be 20, $30. And if you do that every time you see a new book coming out, it doesn't seem like a big expense, but that can be $1,000 over the course of the year, right? And it can go all the way up to investing in coaching and programs and retreats and all of these things. They're all good. They're all okay, as long as you're implementing what you've learned and always looking at how can I get an ROI on that.
yeah.
Now, specifically with, I want to talk about marketing expenses, and I also want to talk about social media teams or marketing teams. So when we're looking at marketing expenses, I think the easiest one that comes to mind is Facebook ads or Meta ads, however we want to, call that at this point. And if you're just looking at YNAB or your P&L and you're seeing, oh, I spent $1,000 on ads, I've got to change this expense, I've got too much going out. Do you know what that brought in to your practice? Do you know, it's how many emails did you get on your list? At what point are people converting from a potential patient to actually being a patient? Oftentimes it takes 3, 4, 5 months where you're having to build the relationship with them, build their trust before they actually come in to see you. And then of those people who do come in and book an appointment in the same month, let's say you spend $1,000, you get 3 people to come in for a service. How much retail did they buy? Did they book another appointment? What's your lifetime customer value that you're getting those clients in? That $1,000 on ads that you spent could be bringing in $10,000 over the course of a few months. So we want to be mindful and really understand, no, this is a good spend because I'm seeing the results here versus just dumping money that's not bringing you any type of return. So the tracking and the understanding of where did this patient come from and where, how much money are they spending with me is essential. And it goes right into the social media team. We want to understand how did they book with us? Was it from a social media post? Was it from, a reel? Was it from, like, how did they find us? Were we DMing them and having conversations in the DMs and bringing that in? We absolutely, if we have a social media team, anything that you're doing, you want a return on investment. So let's say you're paying a social media team maybe $3,000 a month. Some of these marketing contractors are kind of that $3,000 to $4,000 a month range. You want to make sure that you're getting that much return on investment. It may not happen that month, but you want to make sure that over the lifetime of that client that you're bringing into the practice, you can recoup that investment. So I think we're just here really highlighting the importance on all things of actually tracking expenses and knowing what you're getting results from and what you're not getting results from.
Yeah, the ROI ties back into our comment earlier of it's not about spending as little as possible. It's about optimizing. It's about being intentional and informed about where your money is going.
Yeah. Okay, so what about if you need a bigger shift, a bigger change? This can be, if you're overpaying your employees, or if you rented a space and you have a lease and you were looking at building a team with 5 people and then your team walks out, or you totally shift direction, right? These are things that happen, especially as we see newer spa owners moving into the scaling phase. So it's very common for a solo, whether you're a nurse, whether you're an esthetician, to have that hustle mentality, to do incredibly well on their own, to generate lots of revenue on their own. But when you move into that scaling phase of building a team, of leading a team, you can make choices that maybe we're kind of putting the cart in front of the horse a little bit too fast.
Yep.
Because I think people underestimate what a learned skill leadership is. And it's very different than being a hard worker, a hustler. It's something that takes time and energy to develop. So how do we shift that? How do we kind of regroup or kind of tear it down to build it back up?
Yeah, I think that this is where cutting or shifting expenses really ties in with the strategic vision of the business. And anytime that you're considering these bigger shifts, like moving locations or changing your payroll structure, that is not something that's just done overnight or a decision that's just made and shifted. It's a whole initiative within your business to make that happen and evaluate the pros and cons and what you need to do and what it's going to look like. It's a whole project in and of itself to make these decisions. But I think the first step is really putting it on the table, like leave all of these options on the table. Be willing to move if you need to lower your rent, if circumstances have dictated such. Be willing to do the hard work of changing your payroll structure if you determine that that's what you need to do to grow your business or to scale your business. Keeping all of those harder things on the table, I think, is step one, and being willing to even evaluate them. Because those things, if you do evaluate and take action on them, are going to move the dial and the profitability in your business in the biggest way. They're going to have the biggest impact on your business and being able to continue to scale it.
Yeah. And I think that there's this kind of fear or belief that, like, oh, I've signed this lease. If I shift into a solo suite or something along those lines, I'm failing.
Right.
And that's not the case. You're keeping the business alive and you're keeping the business healthy. And I do think people kind of expand a little bit faster. I'm a big fan of split shift scheduling. There's so much opportunity too, that like you can stay in your space and just change your hours. You don't have to work 10 to 6. That's really not optimal in how we can fit scheduling efficiencies. So I love having everything on the table, being open to the possibilities. I think it's also important to note that here at Addo Aesthetics, we're big fans of hourly pay. I think that allows predictability and scalability. It's very common in kind of smaller operations to have commission, because the provider will feel like, oh, well, I don't have the money to pay unless it's coming in. But for, again, being clear on that long-term vision, it always causes problems when you have commission-based pay, when you get over probably 2 to 250,000 in revenue and you're wanting to grow your practice. It just does. We've seen it thousands of times. So that kind of goes to the point of really making sure that you understand these long-term decisions that you're making and what the strategic vision is of the company, that you're making these choices now for where you want to be in a year from now, in 5 years from now. That's your job as the CEO.
Yeah. And I think the other one that goes into these project-based expenses is continually or maybe annually evaluating the products that you carry and are using. Have they expanded over time? Do we need to scale that back a little bit? How can we be more cost effective with our inventory? That's another one that can be a whole project to maintain, but really can have an impact on your profitability.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the strategic ordering, because we're big fans of Derma Concepts. They are the distributors of Environ Skincare here in the US. And they have a program where if you're ordering strategically, I believe it's like you can save up to 27% on wholesale. Don't quote me exactly on that number, but it's something around those lines. So by understanding your PARs, by ordering strategically once a month, not, oh, I'm out of this, I'm out of that, I'm out of this, I got to order. And every week you're paying shipping cost and you're doing smaller orders because you're not organizing. You're saving time and money by creating a system around it that can make you more profit, save you expense. I mean, it's a win-win all around. So that's a very, very important one to bring up as well.
Yeah, and I think that all of these examples just highlight how you could be going through your expenses or your profit and loss statement and to evaluate some of the things we've talked about today, and how even just that document alone isn't enough to get all the information or do the full analysis that you need to do. There's all these other pieces. The numbers connect to your systems and they connect to your client journey and like all the different things that are happening. And starting with the financial statements it's really step one, but we always want to know what's happening behind the numbers. And that story is going to kind of help guide you into what changes you need to make and optimize for your spa.
Yes, so true. Well, this is just one episode of Financial Month here at Addo Aesthetics on the Spa Marketing Made Easy podcast. We've got financial freebies for you, so make sure that you check below the episode to download those. We want you to get comfortable with your numbers. We want you to, so often, I know there are some of you out there that are listening that haven't looked at your finances at all this year. So let's take that first step now. Your numbers are just telling you information. And we have to kind of separate that identity piece of, if your business is doing well, then you're awesome. And if your business is not doing well, then you suck. That is not true. It's your numbers are giving you information about the health of your business, and it's your job to take that information and take action from that. Anything else you wanted to add, Nicole?
No, just to engage with it and take one step at a time. If you feel overwhelmed, baby steps with engaging with your numbers, it really does add up to real progress if you just take one step and then another and then another. If you go cancel a subscription today and that's your first step, that's great. Just stay in action, engage with it, and then figure out the next step.
So good. All right. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us, and we'll have another finance episode for you next week.